Do you have the brains? Do you have the wit? Do you have unnecessarily deep knowledge of a 25-year-old video game? Challenge yourself and try to overcome the improbability. Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This is a custom scenario I made called the Improbability, and it is the hardest scenario ever created in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. The park is located in a large clearing in a forest with some strange artifacts in the middle. There is a singular piece of path with puke on it that's surrounded by fire, there's a lake, there's a small 3-tile plateau, and there's some really weird scenery structures in the back of the park. The goal of this scenario is to get 2000 guests and never let your park rating go below 700. You've got plenty of space, but money not so much. You start with 36 euros and have no loan available. You have a healthy selection of rides at your fingertips, but I'm afraid that 36 euros doesn't allow you to build a lot. It is up to you to figure out a way to make more money and also how to do that before your park gets closed down due to a low park rating. I will explain how you beat this in a minute, but to anyone who likes a challenge, I invite you to try it yourself first. There is a download link in the description both to the scenario and to open RCT2, which you do need to play it. You also need the Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 expansion packs, Wacky Worlds and Time Twister for it to function properly. My previous insane scenarios were hard because they took thousands of real life years, but this one is of an entirely normal length. I managed to beat it in under 1.5 in-game years. It does not require any overly precise timings or super fast clicking. All it requires is a clever brain and a very deep knowledge of the inner workings of Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. Okay, let's take a closer look at the scenario and see how we can beat it. We start with only 36 euros and no loan available, so the obvious obstacle is making money, and quickly too, as we are on a timer. The goal says you can't let your park rating go below 700 at all, but it's a bit more lenient than that. For the first month this requirement is not enabled at all, and after that you have 4 weeks to raise it again if it gets too low. This means that if we do nothing, we will lose on April 29th year 1, so we have to get the park rating above 700 before that date. This would be absolutely no problem if we charged for the park entrance. Simply make it free, wait for a guest to spawn, increase the price, and the guest will pay whatever it is as long as they can afford it. After a few guests you will have enough money to buy an advertisement and then you're golden. But of course we don't charge for the entrance in this scenario, instead we charge for the rides, and we can't afford any rides. Getting to 500 park rating is easy and free. We just have to wait until 1 or more guests are in the park, then hire some entertainers to make them happy, and we get 500 because 100% of our guests are happy. You can also easily get another 200 from 100% ride uptime by building any ride. Okay, we don't have enough money to actually build a ride, but that doesn't matter, as even just having the ghost of a ride that you're about to build is enough to get this bonus. 500 plus 200 is 700, but our park rating will not get to 700 with this, as there is some puke in the park that gives negative 52 rating. We don't own the land this path piece is on, so we can't put a handyman there to clean it up, meaning it's there to stay forever. So, to get to 700 we will need to find another 52 park rating. You can get that from the amount of guests, but without a ride we're obviously not going to get that many, meaning that the only way left to get park rating is from ride stats. And for this we obviously need a functioning ride with calculated excitement, intensity and nausea ratings. But what functional ride can we build for just 36 euros? We have no transport rides available, flat rides are too expensive, roller coasters and water rides need too many track pieces, and stalls are too expensive again. The only functional ride we can afford is the maze, so let's see if we can research it. Research costs money, but if we briefly set the funding to 0 every time payday comes around 4 times a month, we can do it for free, with the only cost being a slight delay. For this test I'm not going to bother with that, as we just want to see what we get. We first get a space rings, which is useless, but on April 28th, literally just a few seconds before we fail, we do get the maze. Due to the delays from pay dodging, we won't be able to get this in time, so that won't work to save the park rating. The only option left now is to see if we can somehow make some money without a ride in order to afford a more expensive ride. The only land we actually own is this tiny plateau, but we do have construction rights for most of the area of the park, meaning we can build underground and more than 2 units above the ground. This means we can't remove any of the trees at the edge, but trees cost money to remove anyway. We don't own this bit, so we can't sell that scenery, but we can buy this whole area of land. Let's buy a piece and remove the scenery on it. Wait, what? That also cost money to remove, that's not right. Well, it is right, because this is one of the only non-tree scenery items that costs you cold hard cash to get rid of. Don't worry though, there is one scenery piece in here that does give you back some money. Can you see it? I can. It's right there, clearly in view, as the black pixels are ever so slightly different than the one in the same area above or next to it. If I zoom in a bit, you can probably see it a lot better. It's obscured a bit by the bush, but it is there. With the cutaway view tool, we can properly see that there is a flat black scenery item on top of the black blocks. Buying that land tile costs us 11 euros and deleting the scenery piece gives us back 15 for a profit of an incredible 4 euros. Wow, we're at 40 euros now and still can't afford anything. This is the only scenery piece you can delete and get money from, but maybe there are some hidden path pieces as well. There is obviously one non-hidden one at the entrance, but if you delete that, no guests can enter the park, so that's a bad idea. There are no other path pieces above ground, but perhaps there are some underground. After looking around for a bit, I can't find any, but maybe they're just hard to see or whatever. Oh, I know, we can use the show height marks on paths function to see if there are any. And nothing. Well, that's weird. Alright, let's take one more look underground to... Hang on, what's that? That's right, it's 2 pieces of the open RCT2 exclusive invisible path. And since they're underground, their height marks only show up when we're looking underground. They give 10 a piece, so now we're at 60 bucks, which still isn't enough. There doesn't seem to be another path piece around. But if we also look through scenery, we can see that there's one more on the tile that we bought to remove the scenery item earlier. This gets us to 70 euros, and I happen to know that we can afford a functioning ride with this. It's not a roller coaster or a water ride, but rather a transport ride. And if we research transport rides, we will unlock the trams in early April, just after the 4-week countdown has started. Due to support costs, we can't afford to build it anywhere in the park except for right here on this tiny plateau, leaving us with just 10 cents. Putting it in shuttle mode makes it work, and its stats are high enough to get us another 54 park rating, and that is enough to get us above 700 once the guests are happy. After the mid-April staff payday has passed, we can hire dozens of entertainers to get the guests happy very quickly, and with that we reach 700 park rating for the very first time, resetting the 4-week countdown. If we fire them before the next payday on April 23rd, this costs us no money at all. Even though we have now solved the issue with the time limit, we're still not making money. The odd shape of the park boundary in front of the entrance means that the railway won't fit there, but a maze will, and we've seen earlier that that's the second gentle ride we will research. And thus starts the process of researching and dodging the payment, while also occasionally hiring a few dozen entertainers to get us briefly to that threshold of 700 park rating to reset the countdown. In June we unlock the maze and we can finally start making money. I hope you didn't open your tram ride, as then you'll only get 70% back of what you paid. It's still possible to beat the scenario if you did, but it will take a bit longer. A one-tile maze with supports costs us €36 to build in front of the park entrance, finally allowing the guests to ride a ride. The maximum price they'll pay is €1.80, which isn't much, but it's enough. We will have to pick up the guests who have ridden it and put them back at the start, as there is no path connection yet. A little bit later we can afford a second maze, allowing us to make more money per guest before needing to pick them up. Once we have a few €100 we can afford a rotodrop and charge $10 for it, which really speeds things up. Now it's just like any normal scenario, we're making money and getting 2000 guests isn't very hard, especially not since advertising is allowed. To recap, you first have to discover the hidden scenery piece and path pieces in order to remove them and make enough money to build a ride. If you suspect there might be some hidden path pieces but can't be bothered to look for them, just sweeping the entire park with the path removal tool also works. When you're done with that, you have to know that you can research for free by dodging payments, and know that €70 is enough to build a functioning tram ride. You also have to know that this, combined with making the very few guests you get happy with entertainers, will get you to just over 700 park rating. And lastly, you have to realize that you can make money with the maze that you also have to research. This whole process takes about 4 in-game months to do, after which you're free to build whatever park you like to get the required 2000 guests. I wanted to see how quickly I could beat it, so I went for a bunch of rotodrops and later some twister coasters that are over 600 meters long, as harder guest generation is enabled. With this, I beat the Improbability halfway May of year 2. This only took me about 40 real life minutes, as you can speed up a lot of the waiting around time for research at the start. So that is how to beat the Improbability, which is the most difficult scenario ever created in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. If you manage to beat it without any help, I am extremely impressed, and you can consider yourself an extremely good and knowledgeable player. If you're also interested in the longest scenario ever created, click right here. Thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next video.